In the annals of criminal history, there are tales that send shivers down the spine, leaving an indelible mark on the collective consciousness. One such sinister saga unfolds in the mid-20th century, a macabre story of murder, deception, and a man who would become infamous as the acid bath murderer. This is the chilling tale of John George Haigh. Born into a world still reeling from the scars of war, Haigh's journey would take a dark turn, leading him down a path of unimaginable horrors. His crimes, marked by a method so gruesome it defied belief, would shock a nation and cement his place in the annals of infamy. He was convicted of the murders of 6 people, although he claimed to have killed a total of 9. He did not use acid to actually kill his victims, but rather as he believed, foolproof method of body disposal, dissolving their bodies in concentrated sulfuric acid before forging papers in order to sell their possessions and collect substantial sums of money. During the investigation, it became apparent that Haigh was using the acid to destroy victims' bodies because he misunderstood the term corpus delicti, thinking that if victims' bodies could not be found, then a murder conviction would not be possible. Welcome to Claws and Crime Chronicles, where we dive deep into the dark and enigmatic world of true crime and mysteries. We've got a case that's like nothing we've ever seen before. Born on July 24, 1909, in Stamford, Lincolnshire, and raised in the village of Outwood, West Riding of Yorkshire, John George Haigh's early life unfolded within the confines of an austere household. Haigh's parents, Alfred and Emily, belonged to a religious sect known as the Plymouth Brethren, who upheld strict conservative values. Raised by devout parents, Haigh's upbringing was sheltered by a formidable 10 feet, 3 meters fence, a symbolic barrier isolating him from the outside world. Despite this stifling environment, Haigh, haunted by religious nightmares, managed to cultivate a surprising talent for the piano, honing his skills within the walls of his restrictive home. Post-schooling, Haigh embarked on a diverse career path, initially apprenticing at a motor engineering firm before navigating through roles in insurance and advertising. However, a shadow cast over his professional life emerged when, at the age of 21, he faced dismissal under suspicion of pilfering from a cash box. In 1934, Haigh entered into matrimony with Betty Hammer, a vivacious 21-year-old often described as a good-time girl. Their union, initially promising, swiftly crumbled, marked by Haigh's incarceration for fraud. Betty, left alone, gave birth during his prison term, ultimately relinquishing their baby daughter for adoption before departing from Haigh's tumultuous life. Despite facing imprisonment once again, this time for a 15-month sentence related to a car fraud scheme, Haigh endeavored to lead an honest life upon release. His attempt at establishing a dry cleaning business, however, met a tragic end when his business partner perished in a motorcycle accident, sealing another chapter in Haigh's turbulent journey. Relocating to London in 1936, he secured employment as a chauffeur for William McSwan, the affluent owner of an amusement park. Developing a friendship with McSwan, Haigh harbored aspirations of establishing his own business. Working under the name of William Cato Adamson, Haigh sold fraudulent stock shares from the estates of dead clients at below-market rates. When one of his clients noticed a misspelling on Haigh's letterhead, the jig was up. Instead of Guilford, he wrote Guilford. At age 28, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison. During these 4 years, it occurred to Haigh that his biggest mistake was leaving his fraud victims alive and able to report the crimes. Haigh spent his free time in the prison library, studying the work of French murderer, Georges Seri, who dissolved his victims in sulfuric acid. Using glass jars from the kitchen and dead field mice brought in from the fields, Haigh used small quantities of acid taken from the tinsmith's shop. He found that it took 30 minutes to dissolve a small field mouse. From here he calculated how much acid and time it would take to dissolve a full-grown adult. In John's mind, if there was no body, there was no crime. Released shortly after the onset of World War II in August 1940, Haigh found himself incarcerated again within a year, signaling an unmistakable pattern of dishonest livelihood. Upon his subsequent release, he transitioned into a sales position for a firm in Crawley, maintaining this occupation until 1944. In the summer of that year, a serendipitous encounter with William Donald McSwan, whom he had first met in 1936, led to a fateful night on September 9, 1944. After sharing a drink at the Goat in Kensington High Street, they proceeded to Haigh's workshop at 79 Gloucester Road. There, Haigh brutally assaulted McSwan, shattering his skull. Subsequently, he disposed of McSwan's body by submerging it in a 40-gallon drum filled with concentrated sulfuric acid. Returning 2 days later, he discovered the remains had turned into sludge, which he then poured down a manhole. To perpetuate his dark deception, Haigh visited McSwan's parents, with whom he had formed a rapport, and falsely informed them that their son had fled to Scotland to evade military service. Sustaining this facade, he further manipulated the situation by sending the grieving parents fabricated letters purportedly from their absent son. Assuming the identity of William McSwan, Haigh orchestrated the legal acquisition of all their assets, liquidating everything and amassing a substantial sum exceeding £4,000 in 1945, a considerable fortune at the time. Seizing control of McSwan's residence, he cunningly addressed the concerns of Donald and Amy McSwan, who wondered why their son had not returned with the war's conclusion. In a sinister turn of events on July 2, 1945, Haigh lured the concerned parents to Gloucester Road, where he perpetrated their murders using the same method. Exploiting the situation, Haigh pilfered Donald McSwan's pension checks, divested them of their properties, raking in around £8,000, equivalent to £136,000 when adjusted for inflation. He then relocated to the Onslow Court Hotel in Kensington. By the summer of 1947, facing financial strain due to his gambling habits, Haigh identified another couple as potential victims, Dr. Archibald Henderson and his wife Rose. Posing as an interested buyer of a property they were selling, Haigh established contact with the couple. In February 1948, he lured them individually from the Metropole Hotel in Brighton to his new workshop in Crawley. There, Haigh fatally shot Dr. Henderson in the head with a revolver he had stolen earlier from the doctor's residence. Deceptively claiming her husband's illness, Haigh brought Mrs. Henderson to the workshop and shot her as well. The bodies were then submerged in the familiar drum filled with acid, a macabre ritual he had perfected. Haigh settled their hotel expenses, confiscated all valuables, and profitably sold their possessions, netting £8,000. As of February 1949, Haigh had been residing in the Onslow Court Hotel in South Kensington for 4 years, where one of the fellow residents was Mrs. Olive Henrietta Olivia Robards Durand Deacon, a 69-year-old widow with a 6-year tenure at the hotel. During their occasional mealtime interactions, Haigh, presenting himself as an engineer and inventor, engaged in conversations with Mrs. Durand Deacon. On February 14th, during lunch, she shared her concept of false fingernails with Haigh, seeking his input to transform it into a marketable product. Haigh expressed interest and promised to consider the idea. On the 18th, the two drove to Haigh's dilapidated workshop in Crawley using his Alvis. There, he callously shot Mrs. Durand Deacon in the back of her head. After stripping her of jewelry and a fur coat, he placed her lifeless body into a 45-gallon corrosion-resistant drum, subsequently filling it with sulfuric acid. Haigh nonchalantly returned to the Onslow Court Hotel and enjoyed a 3-course dinner. The following day, growing concern among hotel guests about Mrs. Durand Deacon's absence from breakfast prompted inquiries to Haigh. He claimed that she had missed their scheduled meeting. By Sunday, with the situation becoming increasingly suspicious, Haigh approached Mrs. Constance Lane, who who had expressed concern and inquired about any updates on the missing woman. Mrs. Lane, intending to report to the police that afternoon, accepted Haigh's offer to accompany her. Together, they visited Chelsea Police Station, where Sergeant Lambourne immediately harbored suspicions about Haigh. On Monday, Scotland Yard's record office was contacted, revealing Haigh's criminal history. That morning, Haigh had disposed of the acid sludge from the tank onto the workshop grounds in Crawley before having Mrs. Durand Deacon's jewelry appraised in Horsham. Upon his return to the hotel, the police awaited him. Despite reiterating his fabricated story about the missed appointment, Haigh's criminal past had caught up with him. On Thursday, the police revisited Onslow Court Hotel to obtain another statement from Haigh, which closely mirrored his initial account but with additional details. On Saturday, February 26th, investigators inspected the Crawley workshop. Upon forcing open the door, they observed a rubber apron, gas mask, and empty carboys. Among the findings were a recently discharged .38 Enfield revolver and a dry cleaning receipt for a black Persian lamb coat. At 4:15 p.m. on Monday, February 28th, Detective Inspector Albert Webb awaited Haigh's return at Onslow Court. Webb then accompanied Haigh to Chelsea Police Station under the guise of assisting with their inquiries. Later that night, Haigh confessed to Webb, admitting, "I've destroyed her with acid. You'll find the sludge that remains at Leopold Road. Every trace has gone. How can you prove murder if there's no body?" He proceeded to include the McSwans and the Hendersons in his confession, bizarrely asserting that he killed them all to consume their blood. On Tuesday, March 1st, Home Office pathologist Dr. Keith Simpson examined the Crawley workshop, uncovering bloodstains on the walls and a hatpin within the 45-gallon drum. During the examination, a gallstone in the sludge caught Dr. Simpson's attention. The collected residue, processed in the police laboratory, yielded a list including 28 pounds of animal fat, a portion of a foot, 2 additional gallstones, and a complete set of dentures. Once identified by Mrs. Durand Deacon's dentist, these findings sealed Haigh's fate. Charged with Mrs. Durand Deacon's murder on March 2nd, Haigh was transferred to Lewes Prison. His trial commenced at Lewes Assizes on July 18, 1949, concluding the following afternoon. The jury took a mere 17 minutes for the jury to find Haigh guilty. Mr. Justice Humphrey sentenced him to death. Subsequently, Haigh was executed by Pierre Point at Wandsworth on August 10, 1949. As we delve into the chilling depths of John George Haigh's twisted psyche, we are reminded that the darkest corners of human nature can produce the most horrifying tales. The Haigh case serves as a haunting reminder of the capacity for evil that can lurk beneath seemingly ordinary facades. If you're captivated by tales of mystery, murder, and mayhem, don't forget to subscribe to Claws and Crime Chronicles for more spine-chilling stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay curious, and always be prepared for the unexpected in the world of true crime. Thank you for joining us on this chilling exploration into the dark recesses of the human mind. Stay safe out there, detectives.